The sun was just beginning to rise, casting golden rays across the rolling fields of the farm. The smell of fresh grass and damp earth filled the air as the breeze gently swayed the trees. Lucas had always loved spending summers at his best friend Jake's family farm. It was a peaceful escape from the city, a place where time seemed to slow down. He could be himself here, away from the hustle and bustle. Jake's dad, Thomas, was the heart of the farm, always working, always kind. He had a rugged charm, strong hands from years of tending to the land, with a quiet, calming presence that made Lucas feel safe. There was something about the way Thomas moved, how he spoke in his deep, gravelly voice, that stirred feelings Lucas didn't fully understand yet. He had always admired him, but this summer felt different. Lucas had been staying for a week already, and every day was spent helping out around the farm. Today, Jake had gone to town to run errands, leaving Lucas alone with Thomas. As Lucas finished up his morning chores, he found Thomas fixing a broken fence on the edge of the property. Without thinking, he offered to help. Thomas gave him a warm smile, one that sent a flutter through Lucas' chest. "You sure, Lucas? I can handle it." "I don't mind," Lucas replied, walking over. "It's the least I can do for all the hospitality." They worked side by side, the quiet between them comfortable, the sound of nature filling the silence. Lucas noticed the way Thomas's shirt clung to his chest, his muscles rippling with each movement. He tried to shake the thought, but it lingered. As they finished, Thomas wiped his brow, standing back to admire the work. "Looks good. Couldn't have done it without you." Lucas smiled. "Anytime." Thomas leaned on the fence post, gazing out at the vast fields. "You've grown up a lot since the first time you came here. You're not that shy kid anymore." Lucas chuckled nervously. "Yeah, a lot has changed." There was a pause, and then Thomas glanced over at him, his eyes lingering a little longer than usual. "It's good to have you around, Lucas. You bring something special to this place." The compliment caught Lucas off guard, and he felt a warmth spread through him. "I feel the same way. This place, it feels like home." Their eyes met, and for a moment, everything else seemed to fade away, the farm, the distant sounds of animals, the worries of the world. It was just the two of them. Lucas' heart raced as he held Thomas's gaze, something unspoken passing between them. The story can then evolve with more depth and complexity, exploring the bond between Lucas and Thomas as they navigate their feelings. It will be a story about connection, understanding, and romance, set against the serene backdrop of farm life. Let me know if you'd like me to continue or expand the narrative. You said. The sun was dipping low, casting an amber glow across the fields, and Lucas felt a strange heaviness in his chest as he watched Thomas from a distance. There was something unspoken between them now, an undeniable energy that was hard to ignore. He couldn't tell if it was his mind playing tricks on him, or if Thomas felt it too. Later that evening, after Jake had come back from town and they'd all had dinner, Lucas found himself lingering on the porch while everyone else headed to bed. The air was thick with the scent of earth and hay, and a soft breeze rustled the trees. Thomas came out of the house after a while, carrying 2 beers, offering one to Lucas without a word. They sat side by side, the old wooden bench creaking beneath them. For a long time, neither spoke. The quiet was comforting, as it often was on the farm, but there was something else hanging between them now. "You like it out here, don't you?" Thomas finally broke the silence, his voice soft in the night. Lucas nodded, taking a sip of his beer. "I do. It's different from everything I'm used to. Peaceful." Thomas turned to him, his expression thoughtful. "I get that. Sometimes the city can make you feel like you're running in circles. But out here, it's just you and the land." Lucas looked at him, his gaze lingering on the strong lines of Thomas's face, the way the shadows played across his features. "I like being here. With you." Thomas's eyes flicked over to him, searching, like he was trying to figure out what Lucas really meant. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips, but there was something more in his gaze. "You've always been a good kid, Lucas. But you're not a kid anymore." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Lucas's breath caught, his heart pounding in his chest. He had always admired Thomas, been drawn to him in ways that he hadn't fully understood until now. But this was different. This felt real. "I know," Lucas whispered, his voice barely audible. Thomas shifted in his seat, turning his body slightly to face Lucas. The space between them suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. "Lucas." Lucas swallowed hard, the tension between them crackling like electricity. He could feel the heat radiating from Thomas, could hear the sound of his breath. Without thinking, he leaned in, his lips brushing against Thomas's. For a moment, everything stopped. Time seemed to stand still as they hovered on the edge of something that neither of them could take back. Then, Thomas kissed him back. It was slow at first, tentative, like they were both testing the waters. But the kiss deepened, and Lucas's heart soared as he felt Thomas's hand come up to cup the back of his neck, pulling him closer. There was something gentle in the way Thomas kissed him, something that made Lucas's whole body tingle with anticipation. They pulled apart after a long moment, their foreheads resting together, their breaths mingling in the cool night air. Thomas's thumb brushed across Lucas's cheek, his touch tender. "Are you sure about this?" Thomas's voice was low, barely a whisper. Lucas nodded, his chest tight with emotion. "I've never been more sure." The next morning, the tension between them was palpable, but unspoken. Jake was none the wiser, going about his usual routine while Lucas and Thomas exchanged stolen glances, each one filled with unspoken promises. Lucas felt a nervous excitement bubbling inside him. Later that day, Jake left again for town, leaving Lucas and Thomas alone. Lucas knew the moment Jake's car disappeared down the dirt road that things between him and Thomas would change again. Thomas found Lucas in the barn, brushing down one of the horses. The air was thick with the smell of hay and leather, the sounds of the animals rustling in their stalls. Lucas heard Thomas approach before he saw him, the heavy sound of his boots against the wooden floor. "You're getting good at that," Thomas said, his voice soft. Lucas smiled, his heart racing. "I've had a good teacher." Thomas stepped closer, his presence warm and comforting. "Lucas," he said, his voice low, serious. Lucas turned to face him, his breath catching in his throat. "Yeah." Before he could say anything else, Thomas closed the distance between them, his hands gently cupping Lucas's face as he kissed him again, more deeply this time. The kiss was filled with a hunger that had been building for days, weeks, maybe even years. Lucas responded eagerly, his hands fisting in Thomas's shirt as he pulled him closer. The world outside the barn seemed to melt away, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in the heat of the moment. Thomas's hands roamed down Lucas's back, pulling him flush against his chest as the kiss deepened. They broke apart, breathless, their foreheads pressed together as they stood in the dim light of the barn, the sound of the horses' soft breathing the only noise around them. "I've wanted this for a long time," Lucas whispered, his voice shaky. Thomas's thumb brushed over Lucas's bottom lip, his eyes dark with emotion. "Me too." That night, they found themselves together again in the quiet of the farmhouse. The tension between them had finally given way to something more, something neither of them could deny any longer. As they lay together in the quiet, Thomas's arm draped over Lucas's waist, the weight of what had happened settled over them. "I don't know what comes next," Lucas admitted, his voice soft. Thomas kissed the top of his head, his voice a low rumble in the darkness. "We'll figure it out." Lucas smiled, feeling safe and content in Thomas's arms. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The romance between Lucas and Thomas continues to grow over the summer, their bond deepening as they navigate their feelings for each other. The story explores not just their romantic connection, but the emotional complexity of their relationship, the fear of discovery, and the joy of finally being true to themselves. As the summer days turn into nights, Lucas and Thomas find solace in each other, their love a quiet secret shared between them and the vast, open fields of the farm. The summer heat clung to the air as Lucas stood by the open window, the warm breeze brushing past him. He could hear the soft rustling of the trees outside and the distant call of crickets in the night. But inside, the farmhouse felt still, silent, as if time had stopped. Thomas came up behind him, his presence felt before it was seen. Lucas's heart skipped a beat when he felt Thomas's hands gently rest on his shoulders, a familiar warmth spreading through him. "You okay?" Thomas's voice was low, comforting. Lucas nodded, but when he turned to face Thomas, the look in his eyes told a different story. He wasn't sure how long they had been standing there, but in that moment, nothing else mattered except the man in front of him. Thomas's hands slid from his shoulders to cup his face, his touch so tender that it made Lucas's breath hitch. "I can't stop thinking about you," Thomas whispered, his gaze searching Lucas's eyes for some kind of reassurance. Lucas didn't need to say anything. He leaned in, closing the distance between them, his lips brushing softly against Thomas's. The kiss was slow, almost tentative at first, like they were both savoring the moment. But soon, the kiss deepened, their lips moving together with more urgency, more need. Thomas's hands slid down to Lucas's waist, pulling him closer until their bodies were flush against each other. Lucas's hands found their way to Thomas's neck, fingers threading through his hair as their kiss intensified. The heat between them grew, the room suddenly feeling smaller, hotter. Thomas's lips trailed down Lucas's jaw, then to his neck, his kisses slow and deliberate, each one sending a shiver down Lucas's spine. Lucas let out a soft gasp, his head tilting back as Thomas's mouth moved lower, the sensation overwhelming. He could feel Thomas's breath against his skin, warm and steady, his touch firm yet gentle. "I've wanted this for so long," Lucas murmured, his voice barely a whisper. Thomas's response was another kiss, this time deeper, more passionate. Their hands roamed over each other, exploring, feeling, as they lost themselves in the moment. The world outside ceased to exist, there was only them, their bodies tangled together in the heat of their shared desire. They kissed for what felt like an eternity, neither wanting to pull away, neither wanting the moment to end. But eventually, their lips parted, their foreheads resting against each other, both of them breathless, their hearts racing in unison. "I don't want this to be just a moment," Lucas said softly, his voice filled with emotion. Thomas smiled, his thumb gently brushing across Lucas's bottom lip. "It's not. I'm not going anywhere." The sincerity in Thomas's voice made Lucas's chest tighten with emotion. For the first time in a long time, he felt like everything was going to be okay. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world outside seemed a little less daunting. The farm, with its wide open spaces and quiet nights, had become their sanctuary. And in each other, they had found something even more precious, love, the kind that was worth holding on to, no matter what. The days passed, and Lucas and Thomas continued to steal moments together, kisses shared in the barn, touches exchanged in the quiet of the farmhouse, whispers of affection spoken when no one else was around. Their love grew stronger, deeper, with each passing day, and they both knew that what they had was something rare, something worth fighting for. As summer faded into autumn, the farm changed with the season, but their love remained constant, unwavering. And in the end, Lucas realized that sometimes, the most unexpected places can lead to the most beautiful of things. Because love, no matter where it's found, is always worth it.